On September 2nd, 1989, in Cape Town, South Africa, police turned water cannons with purple dye on protesters standing against apartheid. The water cannons were a new technology designed to stain protesters to mark them for later arrest. A single protester named Philip Ivey managed to leap onto the roof of the truck spraying water and redirected its firing onto local headquarters of the National Party, the ruling political force. South Africa's government had been marked for arrest by the people it was meant to be governing. Purple is the color of the oppressed. Fortitia's Arcane is a masterpiece of animated fiction, combining rich story building, impeccable character work, and stunning aesthetics. Its first season was about family, progress, and trauma, and its second promises to show what happens when these themes crash into each other all at once. Arcane is a story about revolution. It's a story about the exchange of power and about power's corrupting influence. It's a story about conformity and individuality, about inequality, about class, about division. Arcane is a story about oppression. Arcane's focus is on the clash between two sisters, Vi and Jinx, and between two cities, Zaun and Piltover. The character conflict between the twin sisters sets the backdrop for the class conflict between the twin cities. Vi red, Jinx blue, Piltover white and gold, Zaun green and purple. In traditional color theory, the RGB bases are known as additive colors. They're the colors used in digital screens to produce all the colors that we see. They're also the only three colors which the cones in our retina can pick up on individually. Every other color in our visual spectrum is a wavelength of light that hits multiple cones at once, producing the visual effects that we would classify as yellow or brown. Purple, similarly, is the synthesis of blue and red, the product of the only two primary colors in Arcane's color scheme. But what do these colors mean? You probably intuitively understand that people associate emotions with colors, but it's not just speculation. There's actually been sizable research into the topic. Green, for example, has a positive association because it reminds people of nature. It's soothing. Red has a negative association because it reminds people of anger, violence, blood. And not just blood that's spilled, but blood that's shared. Think about the characters in Arcane that wear red. Vi, Ambessa, Silco. The thing they repeat over and over again is that family is everything to them. They are bound by their blood. Blue, on the other hand, is soothing, hopeful, but it can also be depressing, detached. It represents comfort, security. And in Arcane, blue represents Hextech, progress. Purple, interestingly, has been cited as one of few colors with no implicit emotional attachment. However, we've seen purple being used more and more to represent corruption across various forms of media, especially in video games and movies with science fiction or fantasy elements. In the traditional color wheel, purple is opposite green, and if green represents naturalism and purity, purple is its inverse in corruption. And purple in Arcane is also the color of shimmer, a substance that corrupts as much as it gives. It's the perverse technology of those working with less resources than those up top. It's the color of the Undercity. It is the color of the oppressed. Beyond this, though, the clashing colors tell us a little more about the inner workings of the themes at play in Arcane, specifically with regards to the power structures of Zaun and Piltover. There's tension between the red and the blue, just as there's tension between the green and the purple. From a visual standpoint, the conflict makes each color pop, sure, but I think that it goes deeper than that. The clash between green and purple represents the conflict between nature and its corruption. It's the conflict between what exists and the twisting of what exists. But the clash between red and blue, in my opinion, is where I think examining the creators and the intended audiences of Arcane holds a lot of weight. Arcane is originally voiced in English, and primarily by American voice actors, so I think it's safe to say that Americans are largely the intended audience here. It's also a Netflix original, and America is Netflix's largest audience by far. League of Legends as a game is most popular in the US, China, and South Korea, but Netflix isn't available in China, so tough luck there, I guess. However, in both the US and South Korea, the color alignments of their most prominent political parties are, you guessed it, red and blue. And in both cases, the more progressive party is blue, and the more conservative party is red. Looking at the difference of these colors in Arcane, a lot of this fits. Blue is the color of progressivism in Arcane. It's the color of Hextech. Piltover is the city of progress, after all, and its big blue glowing hex gates send a pretty clear sign. Red is the color of Noxus, of war, of conflict. It seeks to use the new technology to progress the old ways. Ambessa's encouragement of the development of Hextech weaponry vies use of Hextech gauntlets. Red uses blue to push its own agenda, progress as a force for violence. The enforcers then draw on the natural association of blue and security and connect it with the progress of Piltover. This has a substantial basis in reality. For starters, police in America, France, and South Korea all wear navy blue uniforms, so it makes the enforcers very recognizable as the authorities of law in Piltover. And it could be as simple as that. But to get a little conspiratorial, the makers of Arcane are the French studio Fortiche. A growing political presence in France is the National Rally Party, the French's far-right, populist, nationalist party. And their motif is not red, it's navy blue, with a wisp of red flame. Huh. The enforcers of Piltover do what the citizens of Piltover do. They wear identities to project the ideals that the people want, but conceal what their actual desires are. The Zonites wear their colors on their sleeves, but not the residents of Piltover. The navy blue enforcers project an air of progress, but internally, their true purpose is the preservation of the status quo. And the status quo is a loyal and obedient undercity that serves the people of Topside. It is the maintenance of oppression. Red, green, blue, and purple form the basis of the color scheme in Arcane, but the supporting colors can tell us just as much. An easy one is gold, which appears everywhere in Piltover but is almost completely absent in Zaun. Gold is a marker of status, of wealth. Jace, despite all his good intentions, slowly becomes more and more bedazzled as the show goes on and he acquires more wealth. He begins to lose that commoner identity and becomes the aristocrat that he's made himself into. We even see this gold hue in the Man of Progress mug on Jace's desk, more on that later, but gold is being built into his identity. By contrast, Victor, someone who's largely done the same thing in arguably a more impressive way, having grown up in Zaun, doesn't fall into this trap. His color scheme still features the white and red of the Academy, but he's much more humble. And as more of his body is replaced by the Hex Core, the more it becomes that deep purple, the color of shimmer, of the oppressed. It becomes a permanent reminder that he is a Zaunite, and that nothing will change that. Arcane also uses the monochromatic gradient to great effect. Black and white are pivotal markers within the show, each giving little hints as to the nature of our characters. The show is not as obvious as to put our good guys in white and our bad guys in black most of the time, but that's mostly because Arcane doesn't really have good guys and bad guys. Its characters are more than that. White in Arcane is an expression of freedom. The residents of Piltover are always wearing white because they are the ruling class. Even the lowest citizens of Piltover are far better off than the denizens of the Undercity. Meanwhile, black signals power, control, malevolence. We see Silco in a black trenchcoat, Ambessa wearing black and silver or black and gold gilded cloth. The Chem Barons wear black. Color provides us a hint as to whose side Savika will choose when Finn decides to revolt against Silco. He flaunts his wealth with flashy yellow and gold outfits, but he isn't actually powerful. He's a runt pretending to have power, like a harmless caterpillar with black and yellow stripes. It's a defense mechanism. He isn't actually poisonous. He's weak. Finally, and most importantly, there's Gray. Gray is everywhere in Arcane, which makes a lot of sense given the context. Arcane is a show about characters, and their properties are very ambiguous. They're malleable. There aren't definitives, no black and white moralities. People act out of principle or out of self-interest, and it's up to us as the audience to determine when each character is doing which. But Gray serves a deeper purpose as well, as a symbol of oppression. In the first episode of Season 2, we learn the truth about the Gray, the factory smog in the Undercity. The Kierman family built the ventilation to allow the residents of the Undercity to breathe, but that privilege, the privilege to the very air you breathe, can be shut off at a moment's notice. The Grey literally becomes a tool to oppress the Zaunites, to inflict on them brutality and force until they bend to Piltover's will. It's the weapon of an authoritarian state, and it can be turned on with the flick of a switch. Grey is the banality of evil. It is oppression by way of pencil pushing, death by bureaucracy. Our heroes in Arcane are so because they have the will to act. Service of the status quo merely perpetuates a system in which people doing their job results in famine, in sickness, in death. Depictions of fascism in media use gray all the time. Star Wars depicts an empire with an entirely monochromatic gradient. The heroes wield the colors of security and happiness. Our villains are dressed in black, white, and gray, and only use their red violence when necessary to put someone back in their place. Gray as fascism is rooted in Nazi Germany. It was the color of the men who would become the face of authoritarianism and oppression for time immemorial. And it is everywhere in artistic depictions of the atrocities committed in the name of restoring glory. Belson's Human Laundry has the healthy German workers tending to living corpses, to prisoners. The upper class, even when they do attempt to help, only focus on the symptom. The system that created the possibility for such suffering is the culprit, not the suffering itself. The gray is menial, it's common. Suffering's most insidious trait is its frequency. The gray is the direct result of Piltover's industry. It is the pollution they wrought on their undercity in the name of progress. And the Kierman's ventilation system is a stark reminder of who's in charge. Topside has the power to make your lives better, but they also have the power to make your lives hell if you choose to disobey them. That choice is yours. Mbessa wields an army of gray and red soldiers, mindless, faceless. They are not individuals like even the thugs in the Undercity or the Enforcers topside. They are the tools of a regime, tools made for violence, for conquest. They have no adornment, no symbols, no artistry. There is no place for aesthetics in authoritarianism. This idea is similarly modeled in our own past. Vladimir Lenin led a revolution to free his people from the oppression of the monarchy, to provide them with education and enlightenment. And upon his death, his place was taken by a madman, intent on consolidating the power that he had just helped to win for the people. And Stalin's regime hated artistic expression, allowing only Soviet realism. Internal expression of the self was distrusted. The individual held no place there. When Silko is killed, he's simply replaced. Other Chem Barons take on his responsibilities of maintaining the Undercity, only this time they don't hold his ideals of an independent nation of Zon. They only care for profits, for power. The people are an afterthought. And so, the gray spreads. Arcane's color pie is a whirlwind of the monochromatic and the additive. Colors representing power, violence, and corruption are everywhere. Yet, colors like orange and yellow are almost entirely absent. These are the colors that most people tend to associate with sunlight, with happiness, with brightness. And they are completely absent from Arcane, both in Zon and in Piltover. There is no happiness in a system built on oppression. Which is why we now need to talk about Caitlyn. In Season 1, Caitlyn has a blue and white motif with a hint of purple. Perhaps a callback to her original design. To me, it seems like the purple holds some more significance for Caitlyn. The opening scenes of Season 2 see her mother's casket being filled with purple petals, while Caitlyn herself ditches the purple motif altogether. In Season 1, Caitlyn was the most receptive person in Piltover to the Zonites except Victor. She's willing to help Vi, enters a relationship with her, and does just about everything in her power to make things right for the Zonites. But when Jinx kills her mother, that compassion for Zon dies with her. She drops the purple altogether, picking up a hint of red, some anger in her otherwise hopeful outfit. Her white and blue, her freedom and progressiveness have been tinged by hatred, by anger, by the loss of her blood. Her transformation into an authoritarian militant progresses at the end of Act 1, where she dons this magnificent cloak with a red interior. She looks like Darth Vader, like Anakin right before he dons the mask. The blue, progressive exterior of her outfit just serves to mask the red, bloody interior. Progress is just an excuse for violence, a justification for the necessity of a militant autocracy. She wants progress on the outside, but on the inside, what she really wants is revenge. And Mbessa is more than willing to give that to her if she follows her orders and wages war on Zon. We see Mbessa's soldiers pledge their fealty to Caitlyn in the closing shots of Act 1, before the rest of the Enforcers begin to do the same. Because fascism promises security, but it demands conformity. And while its onset might be flashy, even for those lucky few who it embraces, fascism is empty. It's hollow. All it is a gray banality ruled by fear. But the revolution is vibrant. It's alive. Because the art of the oppressor is in service of maintaining the status quo. The art of the upriser is a celebration of progress, of uniqueness, of independence. Though the art of the uprising, when it's successful at least, isn't entirely honest either. It is a glorification of the ideas in ignorance of the means used to achieve them. Because revolution, no matter how just, is bloody. This is the tragedy of Arcane. The revolution didn't have to be. Jace's introductory episode to this series portrays the key tenets of the Man of Progress. He meddles with the arcane for good, but when things go wrong, his experiment proves dangerous, destructive. It's a microcosm of his arc throughout the first season. Jace's talents are put to good use and with good intentions, but once other people get their hands on his technology, things turn violent. Jace's development of Hextech is revolutionary and reckless. He understands science, magic, but not people. He loathes the Council and the old guard of the Academy for their complacency. They wear blue because they're comfortable, secure with what they know, what they've accomplished. Jace is anything but. He burns with a desire to create, to progress. To him, there is no time for comfort because he can still make things better. What worries me for Jace is this shot of him in the opening credits of Season 2. He's been blinded by progress, and now his inventions wreak havoc among the Undercity. But to me, the lights seem like those shown in the eyes to blind on purpose, like he's being detained. Hextech is not just out of Jace's hands, it's fallen into the wrong hands. And Jace gave it to them. Jace's color scheme is more complex than most others. His outfits are a mix of white, blue, red, and gold, but I think the development of them and their presence in different parts of the narrative are important. Jace was born to a lower house in Piltover. He has more privilege than the Zonites, sure, but not a lot of upward social mobility. His genius is really what sets him apart, and even then he needs the sponsorship of the Kiramans to actually propel his career forward. Jace is used to using different parts of his identity when he needs to. He's free, but not totally. So his outfit is white, but not entirely white. He's the Man of Progress, and he has blue sometimes, but not always. And he becomes immensely wealthy when he shares his Hextech with Piltover, and his gold adornments reflect that. Sometimes. And I think that the leaked Arcane Jace skin that we've seen highlights this. He's lost nearly all semblance of that blue, comfortable life he led in the Academy. Even his Hextech isn't blue anymore. It's changed, been corrupted, perhaps by Shimmer, perhaps by the Arcane itself. And there's little to show of that white left too. He's portrayed now in red and gold, forceful and decadent. He must preserve what he has at all costs. He's lost too much. He isn't like Heimerdinger or the other citizens of Piltover. His mindset is not to progress at all costs. It is progress at an appropriate cost. He seeks out Silco to make a deal with him, to spare the Zonites and let them have their own nation. Jace might symbol progress to the people, but his colors betray him. He's a man of freedom and of preservation. He's built a new world, sure, but now his goal is to spread it and protect it, to grant freedom to others. And that might just be his undoing. He does everything he can to preserve Victor, only to end up losing him. Only time will tell if the same thing happens to his Hextech, to Mel. Mel is perhaps the most important character in Season 2 that isn't a champion, which definitely means that she's going to bite it before the end of the season. But the fact that her color identity is so radically different from everyone else's emphasizes this. Her identity is pure white with gold embellishments everywhere, from her hair to her earrings to her shoulder pads. But what I think is so interesting is that the one flashback we get of Mel, she's in a completely different color scheme. She wears all blue. Her identity is defined by progress, by hope. When Ambessa takes her to the kingdom that the Noxians have just acquired by killing and pillaging, Mel looks around and determines what needs to be done to fix up the place. And when asked what to do with the prisoner, she insists on mercy. She's a child of hope, of progress. Obviously, that doesn't exactly work out. So when we see Mel as an adult, she wears all white. Because in Piltover, she is free from her family, from her mother. Her militant upbringing is behind her. She can create a city for progress, just like she had wanted when she was young. But then, Ambessa arrives in Piltover. And from that point on, almost every time we see Mel, she is still dressed in white, but bathed in harsh red light. Even her paintings, her nightmares are red. She is no longer free. She cannot escape her mother, her family, her blood. She may not be red, but the red surrounds her. And now we come to Ambessa, the leader of Noxus, a militant, powerful, autocratic dictator. Ambessa is the incarnation of fascism in Arcane. She pushes only for technological progress to improve her own military capabilities and encourages social conservatism and xenophobia. She actively contributes to the othering of the Zonites because sparking war is the only way for her to get what she wants when she needs it. And when that isn't enough, she stages a terrorist attack to justify her own agenda. Ambessa represents the force of authoritarianism, its appeal and the promise of protection and security. But that preservation comes at a cost that is extracted through violence. Even still, Ambessa isn't an irredeemable evil in Arcane. The red flashes of her garb indicate that she will do anything to protect her family. And to her, that means controlling the world to ensure their protection, even razing it to the ground if need be. And if it comes to it, I have no doubt that Ambessa would advocate the prosecution of progressive leaders in Piltover in order to maintain total authoritarian control over the cities. And I think that some of those leaders are being forged as we speak. I mean, come on. Echo is perhaps the most unique character in all of Arcane, both extra-narratively from a storytelling perspective and intra-narratively within the cities of Zaun and Piltover. Echo and his band of firelights are freedom fighters for the lower class. They're labeled terrorists, and their efforts are subverted both by the controlling class of Topside and by rival gangs in the Undercity, who would prefer to profit off of a conflict than to actually end the fighting. At the end of the day, Echo is the true revolutionary of Zaun. He is their champion. His interests are most aligned with the everyday people's. He's focused on the immediate problems of food, of air, of freedom. And so, he's losing. No one topside even knows he exists except Heimerdinger and now Jace, and only a tiny fraction of the Undercity actually join his cause. Because the powers that be, the Chem Barons and Ambessa, don't want peace. They're both striving for conflict because it serves their own interests. This is why Echo is the only character in the show with a green and white motif. Green is not only a positively associated color, it is so because of its connection to nature, to healing, to life. Echo fights for survival and for individuality. He is the remedy to fascism. The murals that Echo and the Firelights create to me are the embodiment of their protest, their revolution. They are an expression of their love, their grief, their joy, and their pain. Something not so different from the murals that our artists create. They remind me of Banksy, of Marianne Pleur, of Nelson Mandela. They are a symbol of hope that those that gave their lives in service of revolution shall be honored by its fulfillment. And I think that's where the next act of Season 2 is going. Echo is gone, clearly, as shown by his appearance in the mural. Whether he's dead temporarily, or lost in time, or in the rune with Jason Heimerdinger, it's a toss-up. But the important thing is that he hasn't been around. And without him, individuality in the Undercity has begun to die. We see Jinx starting her movement, and her followers dye their hair blue. Echo is leading a revolution. Jinx is building an army. Which is why the white, the purity of heart, the expression of freedom is so pivotal. Most of Piltover wears white clothing regularly, but it's fancy and expensive. It's a facade, it masquerades their actual intent. Echo is the only Zaunite in the show to be consistently portrayed in white. But it's not the same as Topside. It's hair, face paint, a mask. Echo's purity of heart, the struggle for freedom, is not a veil that he puts on. He doesn't wear his revolution. He becomes it. And now we finally come to the conflict at the heart of Arcane, the clash between red and blue, between Jinx and Vi. Their color gradients symbol a battle between progress and protection, between progressivism and conservatism. Perhaps not in the political sense, but in the idealistic sense. Vi wants only to protect what she has, her family. Jinx wants to set the world ablaze and start anew. It's why she's so intent on killing Vi and the rest of her family. She needs to destroy the only connections holding her back, connecting her to the past. She must move forward. That pink and purple that highlights Jinx, that is Shimmer. That is the Undercity. She's built Zaun into her identity. I think it's so interesting that Shimmer has such a destructive force on every character in Arcane, except for Jinx. It reminds me of what Singed says in Season 1.
Nature has made us intolerant to change, but fortunately, we have the capacity to change our nature.
Jinx survives her transformation because she has already changed her nature. Victor needed the help of Shimmer to meld with the Hex Core, but Jinx needed Shimmer to complete her transition from Powder to Jinx. It solidified the transition already taking place, corrupting her, turning her against her family, against Echo, against Vi. To us as the audience, Vi is the most central character in Arcane. The story is about her relationship with her sister and her struggles between Piltover and Zaun. She seems, from an outside perspective, to be an extremely integral character. So why is she not represented by blue, the color of progress, of importance? I think it's crucial to note that for the characters within the show, Vi is a relatively minor player. She's only barely interacted with Jace and Mel, she hasn't really met Heimerdinger or Victor, and she isn't leading any sort of revolution of her own. The only characters to whom she's actually central are Jinx and Caitlyn. She uses violence, force, to preserve. First her family, then the Undercity, and now Piltover. And now, at the end of episode 3, Vi has nothing left to preserve. She's lost her family, she's lost Caitlyn, she no longer belongs to Piltover or Zaun. So in the sneak peek trailer, we see her dye her hair black. She loses all color. She becomes suddenly completely unique. She doesn't stand for anything. Arcane is a clash between Vi and Jinx, between red and blue, chaos and order, progress and preservation. Jinx doesn't seem like the same model of progressivism that Heimerdinger or Jace champion. She's chaotic, intent on destruction. It doesn't seem like the kind of change that Piltover wants to bring. And it isn't. But it's still progress. It's Zaun's progress. It is the kind of progress only possible by bringing the existing system to its knees so that the power structures at play can be rewritten. Jinx has sparked a revolution, and that is the basest form of progress. We see the impact of Jinx's identity, her mere presence everywhere in Season 2, with Isha specifically, and as we get more episodes, I suspect with even more characters. Jinx, like Victor, like Echo, is becoming a symbol. The three of them each represent different paths to progress for the Undercity, through destruction, through technology, and through community. Which of them will succeed, however, only time will tell. We've been told that the Arcane is waking up, yet the only actual magic we've seen so far in the series has been from the character presumed to be Ryze in the opening seconds of Jace's storyline in the first season. The other sources of power in the show are Hextech, pioneered and perfected in Piltover by Jace and Victor, and Shimmer, created in Zaun by Singed. However, though we know that there are magical individuals in this world, we've yet to actually see any. There are even some notably magical characters from Zaun and Piltover, all of whom have been conspicuously absent thus far. We've seen 4 of the 8 champions from Piltover and Arcane, and of the 4 that we're missing, both Seraphine and Ezreal have magic powers. Their absence from Piltover and Arcane is important, because both of these characters are pretty prominent in League, with Ezreal having been around since 2010, and Seraphine having collaborated with KDA, one of, if not the most successful video game music ventures of all time. The other 2, Camille and Orianna, are both Hextech-based champions, and I wouldn't be surprised for either of them to make an appearance later on in the season. As for the Zaunites, including Warwick, we've seen 5 of the 14 champions from Zaun. While I think some of them, such as Dr. Mundo or Ziggs, are a bit too, well, unserious for Arcane, Yana, the spirit protecting Zaun, has already shown up in Season 2, and Zeri, the only Zaunite champion with inherent magical abilities, was the first champion released after Arcane's debut in 2021. I think it's extremely likely that we see Zeri, Seraphine, and possibly Ezreal later on in this season as the Arcane wakes up. From a color theory perspective, this also makes sense. These 3 characters' color schemes are primarily yellow and pink, 2 of the colors most conspicuously absent from Arcane's palette. And I think that palette is going to expand soon. What we've seen of the arcane so far, from wild runes, the source of actual magical power, is the most colorful thing we've seen in the show. It's almost rainbow-like. Combine that with the multicolored smog Jinx releases into Piltover at the end of Act 1, clearly an important symbol judging by the new mural in Act 2, and I think Arcane is about to get a lot more vibrant. The militant, oppressive force of Topside is about to encounter the Undercity. Arcane Season 2 will be about the confrontation between the oppressors and the oppressed, between the rulers and the revolutionaries, between the gray and the purple. Arcane's second season is about the colors of oppression. Thanks for watching. This is my first video on this channel, and I plan to be releasing more soon, so if you enjoyed this, it'd mean a great deal if you liked and subscribed. I want to release more videos studying media like Arcane soon, as well as psychology, economics, art, and a load of other topics that I want to talk about. So, if that seems interesting to you, keep an eye out. Stay curious.